Hello. So we're going to look at AI in business, how to scale, how it's impacting industry, and I think the best place to start is to look at how it's being used. So why don't we start with you, Jorge, and you explain how you're using it in your business and how you're helping other companies make use of AI, and then we'll go around and speak to the other two.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here. So at Abacum, we are using AI internally. Our engineers use it now, using Copilot and all those things, and it's proving to be extremely efficient. But also in other areas of the company, like the support organization, to manage internal support, we generated our own bot to ask questions. And regarding how we are going to help, or how we are helping customers use AI, it's by Abacum is a financial planning solution, right? So we help with reporting, forecasting, and budgeting. And we are from using machine learning algorithms for cash classification to also start by providing you a snapshot of how things are going internally generated, plus many more with predictive analysis and things like that.
Okay, Cristina?
Yes, so at Cledara, the way in which we use AI internally is by basically similar to what Jorge was saying. So our engineers using obviously the copilots everywhere. And then also we have a lot of operations in Barcelona. So they've now also even taken it to help them produce better content, especially given that their English is not native. So that helps a lot in there, and also generating a lot of the images for our content that's also widely used at the moment. So what we see is that the speed at which we can do things is increasing, because you don't need to bridge that gap between what do we want and then maybe share it with an agency or with a designer. So that's been really, really great there. And then many other use cases, of course, but I won't share them all, otherwise we'll stay here until tomorrow. And then for our customers, so at Cledara, we have the largest data set of SaaS purchases, renewals, and cancellations in the world. And what we do is now we are bringing that data together, and through AI, obviously now that enables us to query a lot of it in real time, and obviously being able to provide a lot of those insights and benchmarks that before was very difficult for companies to get, or even for us to be able to provide easily to our customers.
Himanshu?
Yeah, hi everyone. We are ClimateAi. So we are an AI-based climate adaptation platform. And we use AI in two ways, Tom. One is on the fundamental side, call it the foundational models of climate science, where we use physics-driven machine learning to predict, let's say, the path of a hurricane and its likelihood of impact on a particular city. That's on the fundamental side. Then on the applied side, which is more with the industries, one example of that would be seed companies, of crop seed companies, not the seed startups, crop seed companies, where we help them simulate the performance of climate-resilient seed varieties at any specific location, and help them reduce the time to launch those seed varieties into the market 30% faster. So it's both on the fundamental side and on the applied side.
So both in and out, let's call it, of AI for all of you involves quite a lot of data. So how do you ensure that data in training models, or in what you produce at the other end, in the output, or even in how you're using the data, is properly governed, is transparent, and is ethically used? Let's start with Himanshu, because you use it quite heavily with in quite restricted fields.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So how many folks in the audience are from the US? Very few. I'm sure like many of you might have been to the States at some point or the other. There's a concept in the US airports called TSA pre-check, right, to help you move through the lines faster. And we apply the same concept with our models. What that means, what TSA means is models should be transparent, which is T. S means models should be secure. And A means models should be accountable. So what that means is that we are telling a seed company or a crop seed company that, hey, we think you should be launching this specific trait for Spain because of water issues. instead of just believing the recommendations, they need to know how your models are producing that insight. So actually we can tell them like, hey, we think because of our models tell us the soil has the maximum impact on determining the future yields of seeds on this location. So that's the transparency part. The security part is also similar, right? If they are sharing their data sets with you, we better make sure that those data sets are used in a secure way, and there are firewalls around their data sets as compared to the other data sets. And the third part is accountability, right? So if we end up using some publicly available seed yields data sets from somewhere, and if someone sues us, that means they're also suing the food companies or the seed companies we are working with, right? So how do we ensure that the data sets that we are using are extremely proprietary, but also the publicly available ones that we are using are also like have gone through a lot of sanitary check. So I call it like a TSA pre-check model, and if you have all of those metrics defined in front of your customers, it's easier to get a deal.
Okay.
Sorry if I may.
Go ahead, yeah.
What I would add to add is that it starts with the organization as well. So when we started to see that people were using AI within the company, and just querying things on ChatGPT, and we've all seen that, right? So we sat together and said, okay, we are going to put a policy in place. We are going to explain the business. What is the type of data that should never yet go there because we are not sure, and which data is okay, and how do we want to basically do it as a business, right? And then give people the right guidelines, because we actually want to encourage them to use it. We want to be able to have everybody in the company understand what they can do with it. And I think unless you are able to very clearly define what those guardrails are, you may be giving away your competitive advantage even without realizing it, right? Because with these AI models having everything, basically, your proprietary data becomes very important for the differentiation of your business. So that's something that I just wanted to add to that.
Jorge, before I come on to you, in Europe, things are tougher because you've got GDPR, you've got the EU AI Act, which is coming in soon. Is it harder to manage data, to build AI or work with AI compared to other places in Europe?
I think we've been, as you were mentioning, GDPR has been there for quite some time already, and so probably we got used to that, and so there are some things already that you get for granted. And so when you start using AI, you're just going to be careful that you're going to be using models that are not going to be using your data for training purposes, right? So I guess that it's security by design, no? I think was how it's properly called under GDPR, and that's something that as a company you need to make sure that all your systems and all your processes and people take that as a rule. And so if I had lived in a world without GDPR, maybe I would say then, oh, it was way easier back then, right? But as of today, you just need to make sure that all that, right? The data is not transferred outside Europe, and your customer data is not being used to train other models. And so every time, as Cristina was saying, right, you just need to make sure and be careful with policies and everything that is being implemented. And as a company, every year we go through different type of compliance, SOC 2 or other security, and that we have to go through and revisit all our policies in place.
Okay. Interesting. So let's look at scaling, because that is a huge part of it. AI is not cheap to work with. As someone was saying earlier on, the only company making any real money out of AI is NVIDIA. So how do you scale when the costs are so high to use the underlying models, to use AI generally? Is it a case of working out when and when not to use AI? Cristina, let's ask you about that one.
Yeah, so for us, obviously there are things that it would take too many people and too much time, right, to be able to get those results or look at all that data and be able to provide something meaningful out of it. So I think in those cases it makes sense to use, despite obviously the cost. I think also, and obviously there are different ways, I guess, in which people think of the cost these days. Like even having someone just, type on an interface some queries, that is not going to break the bank, right?
Yeah.
But when you have an engineer starting to use the APIs, that's where maybe something can go wrong, and then the cost can spiral. And here is making sure that those engineers that have access to that are mindful about it. And again, there is a cultural element on a way on how to do things. I've had engineers come to me and say, Cristina, but this is going to cost us a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, but we can offer something that others can't. So from that perspective, it has value. So it's okay to proceed. So, and then, here I have to say as well, Cledara helps us, right? Because we can actually track the cost in real time. And if we see at any point in time that that's going too high, then we can obviously quickly take a look and reassess if maybe there are better ways of handling all those queries and that data.
So anyone else have thoughts on that cost and scale aspect?
Yeah, I'll just say that you have to decide whether your AI models are tweet-worthy or they are transformation-worthy.
Yeah.
And both the things might or might not be the same, right? You can deploy very complex LLMs on a small application, which could easily be solved by nonlinear regression models. As simple as that. Then, of course, if you think about scale within the industry, right, it's about cost, it's about security, and all the things that we talked about. So, in our case, we have seen that in some industries where there's not a lot of applied data sets available, there's no point throwing a deep learning model there. That's one. I mean, an analogy of that is like, you don't want to be driving a Ferrari in the middle of a Delhi road, right, and hoping it gives you like a great mileage. And it's the same thing in AI models. And the second, which is also very important, thinking about scaling our models within businesses or industry is the capacity building part. Like, we all live in our own bubbles of like, yeah, we are like great AI engineers and entrepreneurs, and we are doing some cool stuff. But look at the life of the person responsible for deploying your solutions in the workflow of an industry, like chemicals industry, food industry, and whatnot. They have 10 different things to do, in their job. And unless you spend some time training them, coaching them, building the capacity inside those companies, your model will always remain tweet-worthy rather than transformation-worthy.
Okay. Does the success of a tool like ChatGPT, of OpenAI, of Bard, actually make it harder or easier to gain traction in using AI in a business? Jorge.
For us, it's a matter of, and I guess that also happens in many other sectors, but in the financial planning space or finance related, you need to be able to cut the buzz, right, and all the noise that comes with AIs with the proper tools that can be built. And still today, right, there is some valid concerns regarding some of this magic that ChatGPT does from time to time, that it comes up with crazy answers.
Yeah.
So imagine a financial planning solution, right, that you're asking them what is your revenue going to be or what your revenue was last, and that the bot comes up with an answer, right? That's a no-no, right? So today you need to make sure that what you're building is solid, and everything we were discussing today, it has to have a positive ROI in terms of cost, in terms of what provides the value for the customer, and also be able to make sure that what you're building is extremely solid and provides a real value to these guys. And unfortunately today there's still a lot of concerns regarding some of the things that are being built out there, because you see it's AI all over the place. But you need to be able to cut what actually is real value and what it isn't.
Is that going to lead to over-regulation, the concerns of people using ChatGPT and getting these hallucinations, getting these unexpected responses? Or is it going to result into a knee-jerk reaction from governments that will make it even harder to do the job?
Oof.
Any one of you, jump in.
I can say a controversial statement here. In the United States, right? Right now, the way people are talking about regulations of AI, or human controlling AI, so to say, there are less regulations on launching, let's say, addictive drugs into the market than on AI right now. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there have been so many opioid epidemics in the US, which we are aware of. So it's easier to launch a drug from that standpoint. And it seems like in the next 5 years, the way regulations are moving, it'll be more difficult to launch an AI model into the market. And it has a cost, right? Jorge, you talked about GDPR and European regulations. Let's not forget, the top 10 AI companies, in terms of quote-unquote funding, 6 of the founders of those 10 AI companies in Silicon Valley are European founders.
Right. Working in Silicon Valley.
In Silicon Valley. Right? So that's basically telling regulators something, right?
Yeah.
If you make it too hard, at some point, you are stifling innovation and making it like very conducive for big companies to do so, like the likes of Microsoft having invested in OpenAI, or now Amazon and all investing in Anthropic, and so on and so forth. So it's very not conducive to AI innovation. And the other part is also sector dependent, right? So if you look at the latest executive order from the White House, it has a cautionary tone for all other applications of AI, except for AI applied to healthcare and climate change.
Yeah.
So there are so many still benefits that we could have and breakthroughs that we still need to achieve on applying AI to applications such as climate change, that we should not be thinking about regulations right now. It's very simple. It's as good as like going to a small village in Africa or Colombia or India who don't even have a public transportation system, going there and talking about the dangers of flying cars. Right?
Okay.
So I think it's all about which sector, and also about having a right balance of innovation versus safety.
Okay. Cristina, should companies be, like, we're looking at this, and as she was saying, we're going to get to a point where regulation and law is going to make it a lot more expensive to launch an AI model. So we're sort of in that Wild West zone at the moment where almost anything goes. But once we get to that point, those incumbents that have already got those models out there are going to have a dominant position. Is that going to make it more costly for those companies that are wanting to use these AI models because the startups can't break through?
That's a difficult question, I would say, but because I don't know actually. But I think that it will definitely make it harder, right? So obviously, if you've built already all those models and they have everything, I think that's going to be harder for newcomers. Equally, obviously, you can train your own models with your own data, and here is where I think having your own data becomes important, right? And then it's like, okay, how is there a future where people don't want to share their data anymore out there, and therefore we become very private again, and information is power.
See an AI version of what we're seeing with television streaming at the moment, where all of the channels are suddenly launching their own streaming services, and you have to pay for 30 of them instead of paying for just the one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. You touched on climate change and models for climate change. You touched on smaller models and data. Where is the balance, though? Because the other big talking point in tech at the moment is net zero. It's about how across the industry, is how we manage the amount of emissions being used. So where's the balance point between using AI to, for example, track emissions within a business or within a supply chain against the cost of training these models? Is it smaller models? Is it shrinking?
Again, depends on the use case, right? And so just to set the context, data centers are supposed to be the fastest growing consumers of energy, period. Even in 2020, they were consuming, their emissions were 3% of the global emissions, which is equivalent to the emissions of the entire aviation industry. And it's only going to go, this is the data from 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know what the numbers right now are. So yes, so it's going to be a big challenge on how do we balance the climate impact of AI versus the AI impact on climate.
Okay.
Right? It's going to be dependent on the use case and the ROI trade-offs there. So to your point, Ryan, if the use case requires you just use non-linear regression models, why do you want to throw a deep learning model at that problem?
Yeah.
Right? And then you can think about the trade-off of cost as well as emissions.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else have any thoughts on that balancing act between emissions, between costs? You could expand it out a little bit as well to explore the wider cost to the business and how that impacts the bottom line for a company deploying AI.
For us, oops, sorry, Cristina.
No,
go ahead.
for it. No, I took the previous one, no worries.
No, for us, in Abacum, the amount of data, it's been really relevant since day zero, right? We become the single source of truth for our customers, and so they expect to pull a lot of data in order to build all their financial and operational models. So we've been tracking the amount of usage for our own survival, right? We don't want to see an AWS surprise invoice at the end of the month. So that clearly is a point that, you know, taking forward with all these data models, it's forced us to make sure that we are extremely efficient and how we process data, how we manage data, also to ensure performance.
Yeah.
So probably doing all that is not enough. So then you need the consciousness of the businesses and try to have that in mind. Maybe, hopefully, the first part, it already takes us a long path towards that sustainability piece, because it's our own survival that is at stake.
Now, sorry, Cristina, but we've got 2 minutes left. If each of you briefly give one key takeaway that you think people in the audience or starting a business or in business now should consider when they're looking at deploying AI. Let's start with you, Himanshu, since you were last.
I'll just go back to my last point,
Yeah.
which is think about the very basic fundamentals of launching any startup still applies. AI is just a tool in your toolkit, nothing more. So think about, are you really solving a burning pain point? Or is it like a cool technology looking for a problem to solve?
Yeah.
Like if you have the answer right there, then going back to the point about tweet-worthy versus transformation-worthy. That's all it is.
Interesting. Cristina.
Yeah, so what I would say is, obviously your companies are already using AI, of course, and if you think they're not, probably they are. When we look at our data, right, we have tons of products that we track, and ChatGPT is already, on the top 20, so it is very high up on how people are using that. So what I would say is make sure that, put those guidelines within your organization, let your company know and your employees know what is it that they can do and what they can't to basically protect your business and the future of your business.
Jorge, 30 seconds.
Make sure that there are certain things that clearly add a lot of efficiency, writing content, code, or things like that. So make sure your team is trained to be extremely efficient on that. And on the other side, make sure to cut the noise, as we were discussing, right? There's a lot of things that we think, AI probably can be solved way easier, or maybe AI is not yet ready to solve that. So make sure you build something really valuable.
Okay, fantastic. So takeaway, do we really need AI in the job that you're trying to do? Watch out for your transparency in the data, and just ask the questions while you're looking to deploy it. I think that's a summary. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.